Hello traders, and welcome to this market overview video for the week ahead commencing on Monday the 25th of June. We would like to start this week's market overview by answering a few important questions which have surfaced in our chat room in the last few days. These questions are mostly related to time frame correlation. In last week's market overview, we noted that the weekly Aussie dollar chart had plenty of room to the downside. In fact, the current price is roughly 230 pips away from the end of the wealth crossover wave shown here. However, the daily chart has reached the end of the wave and it looks as though we may be getting a move to the upside which has already started. So the question is, how can we distinguish between the various time frames and make sense of them when they are saying entirely different things? As you may know, this question highlights a fundamental part of trading known as time frame correlation, and it is a concept which really needs to be clearly understood and implemented on each individual trade. Let's go back to the weekly time frame and see if we can offer a fairly clean answer to this question. As you can see, the weekly is moving down, and according to the wealth crossover indicator, we can reasonably expect a couple of hundred pips of additional movement to the downside. However, price on the daily chart will inevitably have movement both with the weekly direction, which in this case is down, and against the weekly direction, which in this case is up. Similarly, the 4-hour movement of price will inevitably contain moves both with and against the daily direction. We can keep drilling down through the various time frames, and each one will inevitably contain smaller and smaller moves or waves to both the upside and the downside. Incidentally, the entire purpose of the wealth crossover indicator is to pinpoint the length of these waves on all the various time frames and estimate the turning points in the markets. It's essential that we understand this concept and that we are aware of the higher time frame when placing a trade. This subject was actually covered in an article that we wrote and posted in our blog. You can access that article here in the help menu. But very briefly, let's cover the relationships between the various time frames and how we leverage those relationships when placing a trade. When placing a trade on the daily charts, it is the weekly charts which act as the higher time frame and which define what some people call market weight. In other words, we could say that the weekly market weight for the Aussie is bearish or pointing downwards. So if the weekly time frame is moving down and the daily time frame is moving down, we are moving with the market weight or with the weekly trend. If the daily chart is moving against the weekly direction, then it is said to be moving counter trend or against the flow of market weight. Similarly, when trading the 4-hour time frame, we use the daily time frame as the higher time frame for direction. And when trading the 15-minute charts, it is the 4-hour charts that we use as the higher time frame. It really is well worth spending some time to fully digest and comprehend this subject, since it forms one of the fundamental pillars of trading. So let's move on and look at some potential setups for the week ahead, and let's continue with the subject of time frame correlation and stay right here on the Australian dollar against the US dollar for some live chart analysis. We already know that the weekly chart is moving downwards and we can expect more movement to the downside. We also know that the daily has reached the end of the wealth crossover wave and we are expecting a move to the upside, which looks like it's already started happening, shown here. Now, some traders may want to open a position on the daily time frame once their rules have been clearly met. More conservative traders may want to wait for price to reach the end of the new wealth crossover wave and then place a short trade once price begins moving in the same direction as the weekly time frame, which, as we all know now, is down to the short side. As a general rule of thumb, it is recommended to trade in the same direction as the higher time frame. However, it is not mandatory, and more experienced traders will trade in both directions if the setup is clean and if rules are met. Now, the other market that we would like to look at for the upcoming week is the British pound against the Australian dollar, which, as you can see here on the daily time frame, has reached the end of the wave and has also interacted with the missile tracker line, and has also interacted with a very strong level shown here when we zoom out a little bit. Also notice that the distance between the purple and the blue lines is fairly significant, which indicates that there is potentially plenty of room to the downside. Again, it's a great habit to always be aware of the higher time frame, which in this case is the weekly. So let's do that now. And as you can see, if we enter the market with a short trade on the daily time frame, we will be trading against the weekly chart. Again, the more conservative traders may want to wait for the daily chart to pull back and then turn to the upside before opening a position. In terms of the daily time frames, these two markets represent the cleanest opportunities that we can find for the week ahead. Of course, for those who like to trade the lower time frames, there will inevitably be an abundance of opportunities across the various time frames each day. The good news is that you can keep up to date with those moves and have your say via our online trading floor, where the entire FoxEx team are always sharing valuable ideas and insights and potential setups. You can also follow us on Twitter at the following address, and you can ask a question by clicking the help tab shown here. Okay traders, we hope that this has been useful and beneficial. If you feel that there's anything missing from the market overviews, or if you have any suggestions for the FoxEx team, then please reach out to us via our online trading floor. This has been a market overview from FoxEx.